Today on Notsam Wrestling, how will the Kevin Owens story affect Cody Rhodes? The Jey Uso bloodline redemption arc is upon us. The Motor City Machine Guns are WWE superstars. What are these references that keep being dropped on WWE television and so much more? This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling. And I've got to tell you, we're just getting off of both a Raw and a SmackDown that have been pretty rich in storytelling. And it is, for some things, just as much about what is being said as it is about what's not being said. And when I talk about that, of course, I'm talking about this Kevin Owens story. So, Kevin Owens, of course, we talked about it last week. He shows up on SmackDown. He's trying to say, I didn't turn on Cody. Cody turned on me. He's got to grab the commentator's mic to say it. They're trying to throw him out of the building. He's not supposed to be here. Well, over the weekend, Kevin Owens puts out a video on social media. And he starts the video by saying that he really doesn't like social media, which immediately, to me, kind of makes him a babyface. But regardless, he puts out this video, right? And he says that he sent the WWE a video. When they said that he wasn't going to be on television, he sent them a video to play on Monday Night Raw. And they did not play the video on Monday Night Raw. He said Cody Rhodes has had plenty of time to speak. Randy Orton's had time to speak. They won't play his video. And so he says, listen, either play my video or I'm just going to put the video out here on my social media accounts. As much as I don't want to do that, that's exactly what I'm going to do. And it's been interesting that the commentators really haven't been talking about Kevin Owens very much at all. Cody Rhodes hasn't addressed Kevin Owens whatsoever. That all the footage that they've aired, they finally aired. At first, they weren't even airing footage from the parking lot attack that Kevin Owens put down on Cody Rhodes. And then they did finally air some, but again, it was fan footage just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. So Cody Rhodes comes out on SmackDown, and the Crown Jewel Championship is in the ring, and Cody gives a great Cody Rhodes promo. Performative, having everybody get into the vibe of this big match that he's got coming up with Gunther. And he talks about how champion versus champion matches have been the stuff that fantasy warfare has been built upon, whether it was going all the way back to the territories, whether it was going to the Attitude Era. And he's dropping names like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Goldberg, this one versus that one. He says, there will be no question come Crown Jewel. As between between myself and Gunther, only one person will be crowned the Crown Jewel champion. And he says a lot of superstars in the locker room walk around there scared of Gunther. He says, not me. I'm not scared. As a matter of fact, he invites Gunther to SmackDown next week where he can have a conversation with them and they can talk about everything that they plan to do at Crown Jewel. And that's all well and good, and it got me all hyped up for Cody Rhodes and Gunther, champion versus champion. But what it didn't do was say one word about Kevin Owens. What Cody Rhodes did not do was even acknowledge the existence of not only an attack that happened in the parking lot, but Kevin Owens himself. At no point did Cody say a word. Did Cody not say anything about Kevin Owens because it's a distraction, because Cody wants to focus only on Gunther? Did Cody Rhodes not say anything about Kevin Owens because he's upset that Kevin Owens did what he did and he feels like not talking about it, not giving it oxygen is the only way to handle it? Or did this character not say anything about Kevin Owens because management told him not to? Immediately after the Cody Rhodes promo, commentary throws to a video. And the video is the Kevin Owens video that Kevin Owens himself shot on a phone, where he gets to at least somewhat explain himself and his actions. Kevin Owens, which I noticed this when he was on SmackDown, when he was invading and all that, but of all t-shirts he decided to wear, Kevin Owens was wearing an American Dream, son of a plumber t-shirt. He's wearing a Dusty Rhodes t-shirt. And in this video, he's wearing the Dusty Rhodes t-shirt. And he talks about how he's never felt this bad being in the WWE, this disenfranchised, this dissatisfied. In his whole run in WWE, there's been a lot of ups and downs, but he says he doesn't think it's ever been this bad, and that's because of the treatment that he's getting from WWE. WWE telling him to stay home. He says when he attacked Cody Rhodes, and again, he watches the show. This is what makes Kevin Owens Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is not sitting there going like, oh, if you jump somebody in the parking lot, this is just what happens. You get suspended for multiple weeks. Okay. Kevin says, no, I've been watching the shows. I know that with all the attacks that happen and with all the people who get jumped and everything that always end up back on the show, that always end up in this match, that match, I take out the WWE's golden boy, Cody Rhodes. And this is how you treat me. So now we've gone from Kevin Owens, the nucleus of his story being, well, Cody helped Roman. Roman is our enemy, and he didn't go to me. That makes him not my friend. My friend wouldn't be friends with my enemy. That was the original thing. Now the original thing is, okay, I see how it is. I see how it is that Cody Rhodes has special treatment here and is such the golden boy that if I step up to him, if I put my hands on him, if I put him on the ground, they're going to take me off television. And then he says, and that's all well and good, but he says Randy Orton is who he's really upset at, that Randy Orton betrayed him. He said he would never do to Randy what Randy did to him. Kevin Owens says he can't believe that Randy did that, and he says straight up, he thought it was different. He thought what he and Randy had was different, but Randy broke his trust by choosing Cody Rhodes over himself, Kevin Owens. And he can't believe that. And Kevin Owens says, honestly, the way things are, he doesn't know when he'll be back. And in terms of WWE keeping him off TV, in terms of key parts of the show not acknowledging him or what he's doing or keeping him all far away, Cody Rhodes not acknowledging him, and Kevin Owens first saying they won't let me back and now saying I don't know if I'm coming back. This all very much on purpose because everything counts. Plays into what's going on the internet. Of course, when you read on the internet, people are talking about superstars that re-sign. Drew McIntyre re-signs. Finn Balor re-signs multiple years. Everybody talks about it. But there has been this conversation in the air that there are rumors that Kevin Steen, the human being, has not re-signed with WWE. And whether these rumors are true or not, I think what we're doing here is WWE is saying, well, these rumors exist. This is what people are talking about. So why don't we play into it? Why don't we leave, even though people know this is a storyline, this is obviously a storyline, why don't we leave that little air of mystery? Why don't we leave that little what if? What if this isn't going where you think it's going? What if the real purpose of this storyline is to keep Kevin Owens off TV because he hasn't signed a new deal? What if? How about we get the fans asking, what if? I think that that's what the intention is in all of this, because then it goes even further. It goes from Cody Rhodes, not talking about Kevin Owens at all, just talking about Gunther, to Kevin Owens on a video, not in the building, saying he's very upset with Cody Rhodes, but really his problem is with Randy Orton. And by the way, they didn't use Kevin Owens on the UK tour. He hasn't been at live events, nothing. Then he goes to Randy Orton, who's now in Nick Aldis's office. And he goes to Nick Aldis and says, I need a match with Kevin Owens, and I want it at Crown Jewel. Now, it's very interesting that Randy Orton immediately hears Kevin Owens say, I feel that you betrayed me. And Randy says, fine, let's fight. Now, maybe, and he didn't explain this, maybe the reason he needs this match is because Kevin Owens jumped him, right? Because there was a physical attack on Randy Orton. And Randy's saying, friends or not, apology or no apology, you put your hands on me, now I need to put my hands on you. Or Kevin Owens saying, you betrayed me by picking Cody over me, and he's saying, I didn't pick anybody. I'm just trying to mediate, and now you're saying all this, we need to fight. Or we need to fight to get it out of your system, or this is a different strategy that's going to go somewhere else entirely. But he goes to Nick Aldis, right? And he says, yeah, I need this match to happen. And Nick Aldis says, no. And he goes, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. And Randy goes, I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I wish I could talk to my boss like this Randy Orton talks to his boss. Yeah, I'm going to need Thursday off. It's not going to happen. And I don't think you understand why. I don't think you understand why. No, Sam, go to work. Okay, all right, sorry. So Randy says, I don't think you understand how much he needs this and da-da-da-da-da. Nick Aldis goes, I don't think you get it. This isn't me saying it. This is coming from above me. And Randy Orton says, all right, well, then I guess I know who I need to talk to. Which I'm like, oh my goodness. Because with all the history these two have, and I think that that's where it's going to come into play. The only thing, because I'm going like, okay, who do we know is the on-screen hierarchy here? You know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about, what's he going to do? Go to The Rock and the board of directors? I don't think so. I think he's going to go to the person who is listed in the credits of SmackDown as an executive producer who we've seen on screen, announcing the new Crown Jewel Championship, welcoming everybody to SmackDown on USA, welcoming everybody to NXT on the CW. Triple H is obviously the person that he needs to go to. And I mean, if this means we're getting a Randy Orton Triple H television segment, I mean, I can't tell you. I'm all for it is a dramatic understatement. The idea that evolution and every bit of history between Triple H and Randy Orton can all play into this. And clearly we're not going to get a Triple H Randy Orton match, but just the magic of those two being on screen again is going to be enough for me. Because where I would imagine it's going to go is Randy Orton is going to be able to play on that history. Randy Orton is going to be able to play on the connection that the two of them have and how far back and deep that goes. And Randy Orton is going to be able to convince Triple H to give him this Crown Jewel match with Kevin Owens at Crown Jewel. Because if anybody can convince Triple H of something, if anybody knows how to speak the language in which Triple H needs to be spoken in, Randy Orton would be that guy, no? But here's my real question about this story. Do I think we're going to get the Randy Orton-Kevin Owens match? Yes. But the same way I said last week that ultimately this Randy Orton or this Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes story is a device to get to Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. I think the Randy Orton, Kevin Owens story is a device to get to Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes even quicker than Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. And I wonder, is the character of Cody Rhodes in trouble when Kevin Owens is back on screen? Here's the thing. We love a rebel. Kevin Owens has been rebellious. Kevin Owens is speaking from the heart. Kevin Owens, as always, is not lying. Kevin Owens is not lying about being kept off television. Kevin Owens is not lying about the fact that we all bore witness to Roman Reigns' reign of terror over 3.5 years, that now Cody Rhodes is helping Roman reattain. Nothing that Kevin Owens is saying is false. I think that if this were anyone other than Cody Rhodes, we'd be in a lot of trouble. I think if this were anyone besides Cody, when Kevin Owens came back, they would be cheering Kevin Owens and booing the good guy. And we can't go back to this era of booing the good guys and cheering the bad guys. It just doesn't make sense. The whole, well, as long as there's a reaction, we're fine. No, we're not, because we can't tell the stories properly if that's the case, happening every single time. I think it lends to two things. Number one, the faith that people have in the WWE product. meaning that I think for a long time, the reason that people booed good guys and cheered bad guys was because they didn't have a ton of faith in the long-term creative of the product, that they started getting bored, that they didn't like the decisions that were being made, so they decided to disrupt. Sometimes a disruptor needs to come along. I don't think that that's the case anymore. I think that what we're seeing on WWE television now is something that generally, in an overarching way, you could nitpick this night, this match, that match, this character, that character, but in an overarching way, people are enjoying what they're seeing now and have faith that even if something happens that they didn't see coming, they'll continue to enjoy it. And unless that faith gets disrupted, I think they're going to stay that way. So people are willing to cheer who they're supposed to, narratively speaking, and boo who they're supposed to, narratively speaking. I also think that Cody Rhodes is such in such a unique position in the sense that he brought back the universally beloved babyface model that we haven't seen since 1989. That there hasn't been anyone like Cody Rhodes, and comparing Cody Rhodes to anyone else is unfair. If this same storyline had happened to John Cena 10 years ago, John Cena would have been booed. And I know that that's what would have happened because it happened multiple times that John Cena was booed and his opponent was cheered, even though he was the good guy and his opponent was the bad guy. That's not the era that we're in anymore, and that's not the superstar that we have anymore. The reason why I don't think people are going to boo Cody Rhodes when Kevin Owens comes back is because people aren't booing Cody Rhodes now. If people were going to boo Cody Rhodes when Kevin Owens comes back, they'd be booing him now because people like Gunther. And they're not going to boo Cody Rhodes and cheer Gunther. And so because of that, as much as logic lands on the side right now of Kevin Owens, I just don't think Cody Rhodes is there yet. I think anyone else, anyone besides Cody Rhodes is getting booed. Because let's be honest, Cody was the ultimate disruptor. Cody was the one that left the WWE and was a key component in starting a disruptive competitor brand. And then was even a bigger disruptor by leaving that brand and coming back to WWE. He disrupted by leaving and making his list and going through the indies. He disrupted by helping create AEW, and then he disrupted by leaving AEW and coming back to WWE. That's and that foundation is one of the many reasons why he's so beloved. But that said, you can't disrupt that foundation. We can't have Cody not talking about Kevin Owens because the boss told him not to. If we found out that the reason that that character is not talking about Kevin Owens is because he was told in the locker room, don't address this, and then he comes out and doesn't address this, then we start to lose faith in that character because he's no longer a disruptor. But that's what makes Cody Rhodes unique, is that he's a traditional, pure, babyface good guy who also happens to be a disruptor. And if things aren't right, he'll change them. We'll see, you know. I think that explanation is going to need to come because eventually Kevin Owens will be back, and eventually he'll be face to face with Cody Rhodes, and eventually he'll be saying all the stuff that he's saying. And I look forward to seeing what Cody Rhodes' response to all of it is. The bloodline was knee deep. We're back to being knee deep in story. And I mean, you know, when I saw the announcement that Roman Reigns is going to be on the majority of SmackDowns between now and the end of November, you know, they put out that graphic that had the list of all the SmackDowns that he was doing, and it's most of them. I got a little like, well, what I hope they don't do is stretch this thing out. You know what I mean? Do like, you know, 2 shows worth of story over the course of 6, because that's what they have Roman for. And instead, no. I mean, in this 1 week, since the last time we spoke here on Notsam Wrestling, we've had story beat after story beat after story beat. Of course, when we last spoke, Jimmy was advocating for the return of Jey. Roman Reigns was beat down by the bloodline, and Jimmy said, we need him, Roman. We need him back. We need him back. So Monday Night Raw came along, and what happened? Jey Uso, not addressing any of the bloodline, not wanting anything to do with it. He said, I left my family, as did Braun Breaker. That's almost, the fact that Braun Breaker is not using his family name and that Jey Uso had removed himself from the bloodline. That's one of the things that makes both of them strong competitors, right? Strong characters. So after Jey Uso's coming to the aid of the New Day and Braun Breaker coming out, but Jey Uso still getting the best of Braun Breaker, which was big, right? That Jey Uso came out to save the New Day and then took out Braun Breaker in the process. And then when Braun Breaker tried to sneak attack, Jey Uso saw it coming and took him out again, making him not look like a fluke Intercontinental Champion. What he didn't realize was he gets back and Jimmy Uso, his brother, is waiting for him in his locker room. Jimmy says, you got a sec? And Jey walks away. Jey wants nothing to do with it. Later on in the show, Jimmy is backstage going locker room to locker room. Jey Uso comes out, looking like he's getting ready to leave the building. And and Jimmy says, come on, Jey, and Jey looks at him and he goes, no. He just says, no, man, and get out of my face. And he splits. Jimmy Uso is not successful in his attempt to bring Jey Uso over to the bloodline to help him and Roman Reigns with Solo Sikoa's new bloodline. And we also know that Jey's got his own stuff going on Raw. Jey's got a match with Braun Breaker this week on Monday Night Raw for the Intercontinental Championship. So we get to SmackDown and Solo starts the show. And he makes it clear that the beatdowns on Roman Reigns are going to continue. He said Jimmy tried to step up. Jimmy got put down. Then Jimmy went to talk to Jey, and Jey didn't want nothing to do with this either. He said the beatings are going to continue until Roman Reigns acknowledges him. And he's going to give him till the end of the night to acknowledge him. And that's when we hear, Uso! And we start yeeting, and the crowd goes crazy. Now, with everything going on between the champion versus champion matches happen, which means that the each brand is on various weeks having both champions on. Tiffany Stratton showing up on Raw because of the Nia Jax beef with Liv Morgan going into Crown Jewel. Now you got Jey Uso coming into SmackDown. Clearly, we're getting a blurred line with these brands, but there's a reason for all of them happening. It's all storyline based and not just like, well, it's a super show now. Everybody goes wherever. You can justify all of them, which I far prefer than not. So Solo, when he's saying this, Jey Uso's music plays and Jey Uso shows up with his new blue highlighted Intercontinental Championship, comes through the crowd, yeets his way all the way to the ring. And when he gets in the ring, that's when you really see the picture. Because we haven't seen Jey Uso interact or talk about the bloodline really much at all. He hasn't interacted with them at all, and he's barely talked about them since leaving and showing up on Raw. But when I saw him in the ring, I was like, this really is, he's the only one from Solo to the Tongans to Jacob to Roman to Jimmy, all of them. Black and red, only black and red. And then you have Jey, who's got his Intercontinental Championship with bright blue highlights on it, wearing no black and red at all, wearing white, turquoise, and pink, doing his own thing. And Jey comes in, he tells Solo that Solo is dividing the family. There were so many pearls in this Jey Uso Solo confrontation. Because Jey Uso said straight up, if you want to take Roman's power away from him, take Roman's power away from him. He said, I don't have any problem with that at all. But don't divide the family. And Solo said, I'm not dividing the family. I'm not trying to divide the family. But I'm the tribal chief. And Jey said, well, if you're not trying to divide the family, why are they here? Why'd you bring them? Why'd you bring the Tongans? And why'd you bring Jacob Fatu? He says, there's a reason we stayed away from him. When he's talking about Jacob Fatu, this is the key kernel of Jacob Fatu lore. That it's not like, oh, you guys didn't know, Solo's got another cousin that you had never heard of. The bloodline was very well aware of Jacob Fatu because you would ask the question, if he's able to just destroy everybody, why wouldn't they have used him before? Because of everything Paul Heyman said. And now you have Jey Uso, who's not an on-screen Paul Heyman guy at all, backing up everything Paul Heyman said. There's a reason that he wasn't brought in. He's explained there was a method to what the bloodline was doing originally, and bringing in the guys that you've brought in, that's not what the method is, man. And you are dividing the family. Wow. He says that Solo's dividing the family. Solo says all you have to do, he said, this is the bloodline now. He says, there'll always be a place in my bloodline for Roman Reigns and for you. All you have to do is acknowledge me. And Jey says, the next time I see you, it's going to be different. And he gets out of there. Jey leaves, right? He leaves, right? He says, the next time I see you, it's going to be different. And then the segment ends, we go and we do our thing. And now there's Travis Scott playing backstage. And the SUV comes in with Roman Reigns and Jimmy Uso. Just as cool as two people can be, rolling up to SmackDown, listening to unreleased Travis Scott music. I don't think I ever heard that one, Oos. That's because it's not out yet. What a flex. But they run into Jey Uso on the way out. And this time it's a little different. So this time, Jey smiles at Jimmy. He doesn't dap him up. Jimmy looks for the dap. He doesn't get it. But Jey does smile at Jimmy, which he was scowling at Jimmy before. Now, Jimmy gets the smile. Roman gets the scowl. And Roman just stares at Jey. And everything all of a sudden comes flooding back. These PTSD-like feelings where we've all seen this rise of Jey Uso over the last year and what he's been able to do. And all of a sudden, Roman and Jey are staring at each other again. And we're right back to all that bloodline drama. We're right back to SummerSlam 2023. And Jey finally stepping up to Roman Reigns. We're right back to the trial of Sami Zayn. And Jey stopping Solo Sikoa from spiking Sami. From before. We go back to Survivor Series War Games 2022. When Jey and Sami embraced, we go back before that to the mental beatdowns that Roman was putting on Jey Uso. Well, now this is a new independent man who's staring back at Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns tells Jey Uso, I'm proud of you. We all are. Roman Reigns, when he gets out of that car, there is no denying the way he carries himself, the way he walks, the way he rides these SUVs, the way he listens to unreleased Travis Scott music. This Roman Reigns character is the same Roman Reigns character that left. Roman Reigns the character as a person has not changed. But I think that as much time as that Roman Reigns character spent in the gym, he also must have spent in a therapist's office. Because the way he's treating Jimmy like a human being again, the way he understands that Jey Uso needs to hear that Roman and everybody else is proud of him, that Roman can't simply lead by fear anymore, that is an evolved human being, no? But it's not enough. It's not enough, because when he says that, Jey gives Roman this look, after everything you did, because he had told Solo Sikoa earlier, I quit. I left the family. I didn't divide the family. I left to prove that I could be my own man. And he looks at Roman and he says, no yeet. And he walks away. And Roman says, I told you, Jimmy. We tried. Come on. And they walk off. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. At some point, Roman Reigns is going to say the word yeet to Jey Uso. Roman said no yeet the whole rise of Jey Uso. Jey now says no yeet back to Roman Reigns. The pop, the ovation that you are going to hear when Roman Reigns looks at Jey Uso and says, yeet. I mean, they're going to go insane because that's going to be the word that signifies that Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, and Jey Uso are back together as a team. And that Roman saying yeet showcases that the team is back together, but the power dynamic has changed. The team is back together, but there's an acknowledgement that Jimmy and Jey Uso have evolved past being foot soldiers to Roman Reigns and the bloodline. That Jimmy and Jey Uso are essential, valuable members. That without Jimmy and Jey Uso, Roman can't do the things that he's been doing, which has been true from the beginning, but not something that Roman Reigns has ever acknowledged. So Roman and Jimmy, and this got me very excited because this is the first time we've seen it in quite a while. Roman and Jimmy are back in the Hardwood bloodline office. You know, the locker room backstage, but with all the hardwood and the leather furniture and everything. We haven't seen that bloodline locker room in a very long time. So Roman's in it, and Jimmy Uso is right. I mean, he's breathing down his neck. He's right on Roman's shoulder. And Roman goes, "What are you doing? Get away from me." And Jimmy says, "I was trying to make you comfortable. I was trying to be like the wise man." And Roman says, "Well, you're not the wise man." He goes, Okay. What do you want to do? Like, how do we figure this out?" And Roman says, "Well, if the wise man was here, I think he would have figured this out already." And we go, "Oh, okay." And Roman says, "I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to have to do it my way. We tried it your way. Now we have to do it my way because we don't have the wise man. I'm going to acknowledge Solo Sikoa." When Paul Heyman was a guest on Notsam Wrestling, this was the live podcast that we did at Fanatics Fest, and the audio was here on the feed. It's the whole video of the interview is on the Notsam Wrestling YouTube channel. I asked Paul Heyman, when will the wise man be back? And he said, when I need to be. When I'm needed. There is no this date, when I'm needed. Well, we're getting to the point now where there is an acknowledgement that the bloodline is suffering from a physical standpoint, right? Roman needed Jimmy to beat Solo and Jacob at Bad Blood. Roman needs Jey now to take out this bloodline, to not get beaten down every week. And Roman needs the wise man to put all these plans together, because without him, Roman's plans are just not working. So that could be, now I don't know if we'll get him back this week or next week, but I am saying that we are now down this road that we're building to the wise man is needed. Roman and Solo have their in-ring confrontation to close SmackDown, and Roman tells Solo, "Look, man, I'm trying to fix this. And I told my father that I could fix this." Of course, the late, great Wild Samoan Sika. He said, "I told my father I could fix this." He said, "I'm trying to bring the bloodline back to glory. I'm trying to bring championships back to us. I'm trying to bring checks back to us. I'm trying to put us back in the top spot in this industry." Now, by the way, right there, Roman Reigns is being completely forthright with what he is doing. And to go back to the Kevin Owens story, Roman Reigns is saying, yes, the reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is so that I can regain control the way we had it before. And Kevin Owens is over here saying, like, we don't want that. The rest of us don't want that. The bloodline had completely taken over the entire show, had completely taken over every championship. We don't want that to happen again. And Roman is saying, I'm going to do it again. And Cody is saying, okay, let me help you with that. And Kevin's like, what are you doing, Cody? Why the hell would you help him with that? Roman is saying, I'm doing all this not because I want to silence Solo. Not because I want to rid SmackDown of this new bloodline and I'm the only one that can save SmackDown. Roman is doing this because he wants to be in power and in charge of SmackDown again. Nothing has changed with Roman Reigns and the bloodline. So Roman goes back to Solo, you don't need to divide the family, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. And Solo goes, you want to fix this? That's easy. Oh, you told me this is an easy fix. All you have to do is acknowledge me. And Roman says, I acknowledge you. And Solo said, that's not enough. That's not enough. I need you to acknowledge me as your tribal chief. Or else. Which is a Roman Reigns line. And you see Roman Reigns and that face is working and the twitches start. Or else what? Roman Reigns is pissed. He's not doing it. Solo says, you never change. I knew it. You'll never change. And because of that, I'll never change. And he snaps his finger. And out come the bloodline, Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, Jacob Fatu, and they're carrying a beaten down Jimmy Uso. And Jimmy Uso can do nothing to help Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns quickly takes out Solo Sikoa. Here comes Jacob Fatu. Roman Reigns takes out Jacob Fatu. Roman Reigns sees the Ulafalas on the ground. He picks up the Ulafala. He puts it around his neck. And just as he's absorbing the power, the inherent power of the Ulafala, Solo Sikoa hits him with a low blow that, by the way, Roman Reigns perfected to start this bloodline. When he would kick out of pins with a low blow. That's when we realized things were different. Solo Sikoa learned from everything that Roman Reigns did. Hits Roman with the low blow. Roman goes down. Solo takes the Ulafala back. And as promised by Solo Sikoa, the bloodline puts the boots to Roman Reigns again. Wade Barrett on commentary says there is nobody to help the now former tribal chief. Wade Barrett is painting the picture of the story being told. Jimmy Uso is laid out on the stage. Roman Reigns is laid out gasping for air after 2 Samoan spikes. And nobody's there to help Roman Reigns. Well, that's why they need Jey Uso. Jey Uso, who has prospered. Jey Uso, who has become his own man. Like I said, Jey Uso said, the next time that he sees Solo Sikoa, it's going to be different. And I said, when could be the next time that Jey Uso sees Solo Sikoa to make it different? Here's what I think. I think it's going to be Solo Sikoa that makes it different. I think that Jey Uso this week, well, I guess technically Jimmy Uso last week on Raw, but Jey Uso on SmackDown officially disrupted that barrier between Raw and SmackDown. I think there's a very real possibility that Jey Uso is not leaving Raw with the Intercontinental Championship. I think there's a very real possibility that that Intercontinental Championship is going right back to Braun Breaker, and here's why. I think the bloodline is going to take it away from Jey. I think Solo, Jacob, the Tongans, whatever they have to do, I think they're going to get involved, and I think they're going to cost Jey Uso the Intercontinental Championship for a couple reasons. Number one, I think that Jey Uso is going to be involved with the bloodline. I think that this whole thing that we're seeing is a redemption arc for Jey Uso. A year ago at SummerSlam 2023, people said the bloodline story is really a Jey Uso story. And there was an argument to that even then. But that story is still being told. I think that the story was not Jey Uso wins the WWE Championship from Roman Reigns. I think the story was that at one point the Usos needed Roman Reigns to prosper. And now it's Jey Uso that Roman Reigns needs to allow him to prosper. I think Jey Uso being the one to save the bloodline and not Roman Reigns is that full circle Jey Uso redemption arc story that we've been telling for 4 years now. And I think that while if he does lose the Intercontinental Championship, it'll be a kick in the nuts. It'll be really disheartening. But look, maybe he won't lose the title. Maybe the bloodline will come in and they'll just beat down Jey Uso. And then Jey Uso will come back for revenge. But what I think is that Jey doesn't want to help Roman Reigns. Jey doesn't want the family to be divided, but he doesn't want to help Roman Reigns. But what if the one thing that could draw him back is that the bloodline cost him that championship? If Solo Sikoa and his bloodline cost Jey Uso that championship, well, now he has to get revenge. Now he's motivated by the same things that have been motivating him the whole time. If he's still the Intercontinental Champion, then one could argue that Jey should be focusing. He's got his whole own career going on. He's done so well without the bloodline that if he is voluntarily disrupting that to go and fight with the bloodline again, it's almost like, what kind of power do these guys have over you? Has nothing changed? You don't need them. But if he's coming back to get revenge on the people that cost him the title, and if he knows that Roman needs him and Jimmy needs him, well, then now Jey Uso is able to maintain his credibility and maintain his positioning as a key top guy, maintain his level of status, not superiority, but status within the bloodline and that whole universe. So, I think it could go either way, but I think the bloodline will be involved on Raw. And it will be that thing that forces Jey Uso to go, you know what? I didn't want to fight with them, but I have to make sure that you get what you deserve. And technically, I guess it doesn't have to happen this week. Maybe you're not going to, especially if this is all a build towards War Games. But who knows? I think it could. I think it very well could. Please forgive the interruption, but here's the problem with big tech companies. They don't just want your money. They also want to know everything about you. Keep your life and your browsing history private with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, which makes it harder for data brokers to monitor, track, and monetize your private online activity. It even encrypts all of your network traffic to keep your data safe when you're on public Wi-Fi. I like using ExpressVPN because it opens you up to a whole bunch of stuff that you may not have access to, but it also keeps me private and it's really easy to use. You just tap one button to turn it on and you're protected. ExpressVPN works on all of your devices, so no matter how you're browsing, shopping, snooping on your former classmates, you're safe and you're secure. Look up all those X's. It's not a problem. Protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/notsam. That's expressvpn.com/notsam, and you can get an extra 3 months for free. expressvpn.com/notsam. One of the things that had a lot of people talking this week was the Brock Lesnar references on Monday Night Raw, depending on which wrestling news site you go to. Some said, well, Brock's going to come back. Others said, well, Brock's not going to come back. So Cody referenced Brock. I think there were 2 references to him on Raw, but the one that I really caught was Cody talking to Gunther and saying that he defeated the most dominant champion that the industry has known, Roman Reigns, and he's already defeated a feared monster. And of course, he's talking about Brock Lesnar. But I don't think this is the first reference to Brock Lesnar that's been on television since January. And I also don't think, well, look, I don't think that the reference itself is evidence of an imminent return. I don't know if he's going to return or not. But I don't think that them making reference to him is evidence of that in any way, shape, or form. I think instead, it's more evidence of kind of a new psychology and really a new way of thinking when it comes to presenting the WWE product. And I say this because while, yes, it struck me when Cody made reference to him, it also struck me at Hell in a Cell when Michael Cole is hyping up Drew McIntyre and CM Punk, and he's going over the previous opponents that both superstars had inside Hell in a Cell. And he referenced both Bobby Lashley, who literally just left WWE, right? Did not re-sign or decided not, whatever it was. But there was a time when, okay, well, if he's not, we won't mention him at all if he's not going to be under contract. But he mentioned Bobby Lashley, and he mentioned Ryback when he was talking about CM Punk's Hell in a Cell opponents. And Ryback is a guy who hasn't been associated with WWE for a long time and is, doing his stuff on the internet. So, and you're seeing that more and more, right? You're hearing references to not only TNA and the partnership, I guess, that they have together, but you're hearing references to the work that superstars have done in New Japan. You're hearing references to all kinds of stuff that you would have never heard before. I think aside from a very few very specific names for obvious reasons, the history of what's happened previously in the WWE, but also previously in the industry as a whole, as well as what's happening currently in the industry as a whole, is not really off limits anymore. It's not really taboo. I think the way that the product is presented now, it's very much like within the WWE bubble, there's no longer an iron wall around it. For a lot of us watching for years and years and years, there was this kind of iron wall where there's only a certain list of things that existed and a long list of things that never existed within the WWE. And sometimes that list would change. And you just go like, well, that never happened. Moving on. I don't think that we're there anymore. I think that one of the reasons that this era of WWE is clicking with fans so much right now is that the world that we live in outside of the WWE exists in the WWE. But there was a time when the WWE felt like it was its own world completely into itself, where the stuff that applied in there didn't necessarily apply to the real world, but the stuff that happened in the real world didn't apply to there either. And the stuff that happened in none of it applied. Now, I think it's a little different. Yes, the stuff that applies within the WWE world doesn't apply in real life because it's a performance. But I don't think they're insulting fans' intelligence anymore. I don't think that they're sitting there going like, we know that you know this, but we're going to pretend it never happened. Hopefully you'll forget. So I think that that's more what it is. That the idea that Cody Rhodes stepping up to Gunther, Cody can't say, I've never taken on somebody as like sort of big, menacing, and unbeatable as you before. Because he has. He's done it 3 times. And I just think that they're unwilling to ignore that in this era. And I think that that's a really, really good thing. So that's kind of how I took it. I did want to take a second today to do a little bit of, this is a Lash Legend appreciation segment. Lash Legend deserves to have a moment of appreciation for what she has been doing. We saw Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson, Miss Jackson, if you're nasty, on SmackDown. They got the tag team championship match with Bianca and Jade. They were in the audience on Raw on Monday. And then on Friday, they went to the next level. Lash Legend had a singles match with Piper Niven. And I'm just watching this match going, number one, this match doesn't feel out of place at all. This match doesn't feel like Lash Legend is green. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is a tryout. It doesn't feel like any of it. It feels like there is a superstar on SmackDown who is wrestling because she should be wrestling on SmackDown. She had a tremendous presence about her. The audience completely reacted to everything that she was doing. They completely reacted to her power moves. They completely reacted to her getting a Piper Niven up on her shoulders and everything. I mean, it was awesome. All of her big moves got a reaction. People were like, yeah, I'm down for this show. And you've got to realize that Lash Legend, for a long time, was like, that was the person that the internet loved dunking on. Like it was a sport. Because she was brand new to this. She was brand new to this, and like a lot of people in the Performance Center, put right on television. And people would just disregard her. And now all of a sudden, what has she been doing? Under everybody's nose. Working and working and working and working on her craft. And now she's at the point where she can be in the ring having a singles match on SmackDown. And everybody going, yes, this is what should be on SmackDown. She can be on a microphone cutting a promo. She's got this universal skill set now that under everybody's nose, she's not only learned, but fine-tuned. And I think that she deserves a tremendous amount of credit and praise for how much work she's put in and how good she's gotten. And I'll say right now that if I'm investing in superstars like it's the stock market, I'm putting money into Lash Legend Incorporated. And I absolutely think that she is one to watch. And I'm very confident that this will be one of those clips that if anybody saves it, people will be able to go back to and go like, yeah, that was a good call, Sam. You got that one. Because I was so happy to first see Lash Legend get the opportunity to have that singles match on SmackDown. And then I thought she knocked it out of the park, prosper the way that she did. So, yes, right now, if you want to get on bandwagons that I get on, we here at Notsam Wrestling are big time on the Lash Legend bandwagon. I'm also a fan of, so we saw the Motor City Machine Guns debut. We saw some mysterious vignettes play over the course of about 3 weeks. As the weeks went on, they became more and more clear what it was. At first, everything was moving so fast you didn't know. Then you realized that we're looking at Detroit landmarks. And you go, okay, Motor City, I got it. And then MCMG was in graffiti letters at the end of it. And we realized, okay, we teased it going into SmackDown this week. And then before SmackDown aired, during the late afternoon on Friday, they put out on social media a video of the Motor City Machine Guns signing their contract with Nick Aldis. And Nick Aldis bringing them in. They went on. They participated in one of the tag team triple threats, advanced in the number one contenders tournament there on SmackDown, had an excellent showing. I think it's very, very clear that on both SmackDown and Raw that they are putting energy into building up the tag divisions bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think the Motor City Machine Guns are definitely a good signing for that purpose. Alex Shelley had like a cup of coffee in NXT where he teamed with Kushida for a little bit and did their time splitters thing. But I also think that I don't know that was ever intended to be a long-term thing. During that period of time, there were people that were kind of coming in and out. James Storm came in and out for a little bit. So that was what it was. But to see the Motor City Machine Guns, who have been in the industry for 20 years, who have been a favorite of many, who were TNA standouts, Ring of Honor standouts, just known as great wrestlers, getting a shot in the WWE, on the main roster, on SmackDown, and having emphasis put on them is a very, very cool thing. But what I thought was even cooler, again, going back to Wade Barrett, is a comment that Wade Barrett made. I think it was Wade Barrett. It was either Wade Barrett or Graves. One of them said this. Both of them are so good. I don't know. But they said Nick Aldis is looking to his past to create the future of SmackDown's tag team division. And in that one statement, I went, wow. Without fully saying it, this goes back to what I was saying before about everything counts. Everything counts is becoming an even bigger statement. Because clearly what we're saying now is Nick Aldis does have a history. He's not just some guy who showed up in a suit and started being the general manager of SmackDown on WWE TV. Nick Aldis's TNA history counts, and it counts so much that it's being acknowledged that if he is the on-screen general manager of SmackDown and former TNA superstars are coming into SmackDown, let's acknowledge the fact that these are people that Nick Aldis worked with in TNA. And all of a sudden, this history of TNA is getting swallowed up. We thought it was a big deal that TNA talent and NXT talent were going to be exchanged. We thought it was a big deal when Jordan Gray showed up at the Rumble. We thought it was a big deal when TNA talent showed up on NXT, when Joe Hendry, gets a chance at the NXT World Championship. But to me, on a grand scale, what's a huge deal is this idea that because of all the superstars that are in the WWE now that came from TNA and that have been there, that TNA history is now kind of being joined in as a branch off of the history of WWE tree. The same way, like once they were acquired by WWE, the history of WCW became a part of the history of WWE. The history of ECW became a part of the WWE. While TNA is not being acquired, the history of TNA, you watch, this branch is growing, is becoming a branch of the history of WWE. For a long time, going back to the WWE Network before Peacock was even a thing, thought that WWE should scoop up that TNA video library because there was so much there that applies to what they're doing now. And while I still think that is a possibility, I think that the fact that they can create this branch without even really having to own TNA, they're not acquiring TNA. They're just allowing its history to be a branch off of WWE. I mean, it's only going to grow this vision of WWE representing sort of, all of pro wrestling coming together and WWE's place, being where it is in that. I just think it's a really, really cool thing. And yeah, it should be, I love how it's developing. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Wyatt 6 do. I think that they're going to be back on Raw with all the clues that we've gotten. A lot pointing in the direction, could be of, well, I don't know who it's going to be, to tell you the truth. But I think that I'm wondering if Karrion Kross is their target, which if you look at when the interruptions have happened and some of the clues, if that is the case, is Karrion Kross just turning The Miz heel? Or is The Miz actually going to start teaming with the Final Testament? Which would be very, very strange. But stranger things have happened, right? Like, because you've got Uncle Howdy, Rowan, Gacy, and Loomis. That's 4 men plus Nikki Cross. In the Final Testament, you've got Scarlett, which matches Nikki. You've got Karrion, which matches Howdy. And then you got the Authors of Pain. We're missing one, unless you're going to get Paul Ellering back in a ring. You're missing somebody. You're missing a fifth. So if you're going to go faction versus faction, is The Miz going to become a part of that? Or is Uncle Howdy going to watch from the sidelines as, who knows? It'll be interesting to see. Or are they not even going to go after the Final Testament at all? It'll be somebody else. I don't know. But what I do know is it's time to go to emails. Email in notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Our email address is notsamwrestling@gmail.com. That's notsamwrestling@gmail.com if you want to be a part of the podcast. Also, don't forget to subscribe across whatever audio platform you listen to podcasts on, be it Apple, Spotify, SiriusXM, everywhere. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel where all the podcasts go up. YouTube.com/NotSamWrestling. Leave comments, reviews, click on everything. Jacob writes in, I saw you on an episode of Bar Rescue recently. What other appearances have you made outside of the wrestling world, and which are your favorites? Oh, I don't know. This isn't the Sam Roberts show. This is a wrestling show. I acknowledge you as my podcast tribal chief and my favorite personality in nearly all of media. Yes. P.S. I love satisfying. Thank you for all the content you give us. Thank you. Thank you. I love everything I do. This is coming from Mark. I appreciate that email very much. Mark writes in, Sam, my PTC and wise man on all things wrestling. How goes the battle? It's going. I'm winning, so that's good. I wanted to bring up something that I think you might have missed during Bad Blood. Uh-oh. When Solo is beating up on Roman, just before Jimmy showed up, Solo is yelling at Roman, you lied to me, you lied to me, you told me I was our next tribal chief, you told me I was next in line, but you lied. I did not miss that. I acknowledge. We talked about it on the podcast. Then I saw some fan footage of Solo leaning over to Jacob as The Rock came out saying it's all part of the plan. I think this means The Rock is actually the tribal chief pulling the strings. Interested to get your take. Well, Solo has said he's the tribal chief. So I don't think that that's it. Now, I think that The Rock could be supporting Solo in his efforts to become the tribal chief. But Solo has said he is the tribal chief. The Rock coming out as part of the plan. Is it truly part of the plan? Is it just a weird ad lib from Solo? Is it Solo trying to take credit for something that he didn't actually do? Could be any of those three. But while it's possible that The Rock goes, I was always the tribal chief, Solo has said he is the tribal chief. Also, I hope Triple H lets Jey keep the IC title for a while. I do too, but I don't see... I mean, unless it's until November. That's possible. I'd like to see how the dynamic changes between Roman and the Usos. Jimmy is now speaking truth to power, almost like a wise man. Well, we saw how that played out on SmackDown. Jey has a championship and Roman does not. This phase of the Bloodline saga seems to be Roman learning humility. He hasn't changed yet, but he has to, don't you think? Well, as I said, he hasn't changed, but he has. You know, he told Jey he was proud of him. He is listening to Jimmy's ideas. Like, he's not exactly the same guy. He just has the same goals as he always had. And I don't think Jimmy being the Intercontinental Champion or not Jey ever puts Jey back to where he was before. Because he's needed. Whether he's the champion or not, he is needed. And that is his power within the Bloodline organization right now. George writes in, listening since I needed some podcast material for the flight from UK to Orlando for WrestleMania 33. Wow, and haven't missed an episode since. That's a lot. You've said many times you're glad the Hell in a Cell PLE is no longer a thing and that Hell in a Cell match is only brought out when it's needed. Right. I completely agree, but also feel the same about War Games. In recent years, they've sometimes announced that Survivor Series will feature War Games before a feud has got to the stage that requires it. This year would have been a perfect place to have not announced it was going to be War Games until we have both sides of the bloodline all aligned and ready to go to war. Thoughts? In principle, you're 100% right. It's hard to deny that you're wrong. I think that is true. However, it becomes very, very difficult for a few reasons. Number one, War Games is that attraction, and you want to advertise that you're buying a ticket to see a War Games match. And I understand that from a business perspective. But even more importantly, in that sort of vein of not insulting people's intelligence, when tickets go on sale and the seating chart goes up, there's a big difference between an area that has enough room for one ring and enough room for two rings. It's double the space. So anybody buying tickets can see they're putting two rings here, whether they announce it or not. So the fact that that needs to happen, like they don't need to, in the floor plan, show that there's going to be a cell hanging from above the ring. But they do if there's going to be two rings there. So if you're going to reveal it in the floor plan anyway, you might as well try to maximize it. You know what I mean? Zach writes in, and also Survivor Series technically has always been that way. Like, from the beginning of Survivor Series, it was a tradition of elimination tags. It wasn't like, well, there's 4-on-4 rivals in a rivalry here, so we need to do a Survivor Series match. It's November, so we're doing 4 versus 4 elimination matches. Not justifying it, just saying there is precedent. Zach writes in, what's the hap, Sam? Oh, Zach from Adelaide, Australia. 2 quick things to run by you. When do you think we'll see Paul Heyman? Paul told us, when he's needed. I rewatched Roman's induction of the Wise Man into the Hall of Fame, and because of rule number 3, something stood out to me. He's quoted saying, "The moment I'm not with the Wise Man is the moment you won't see the tribal chief anymore." Very interesting, considering Jimmy's comment of Roman currently being a chief without a tribe. I'm wondering, and Solo's comment that Roman is not the tribal chief. I'm wondering if it's not until Roman defeats the bloodline and regains the Ulafala that we will see Paul back on TV, or am I reading too much into it? No, not necessarily. Roman and Jimmy's backstage segment mentioning the Wise Man would have fixed what's going on by now, makes me think it may not be anytime soon. Well, we're on the road, as I said before, but the idea that he won't, like, that they will try to get, everything will be lined up for them to win, and then they still lose. That, I think, is the moment that the Wise Man comes back. That it's like, maybe it is after War Games. Maybe they lose War Games and go, what are we missing? Ladies and gentlemen, and then the Wise Man comes back, and then they can win. Maybe. And the second, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, so I like my brand superstars to stay on brands they're drafted to. Generally speaking, I do too. It's cleaner, it means the draft actually matters, and it helps give legitimacy to the GMs with who they have to work with. Yes. However, in the last 2 weeks, I have to say I've enjoyed the use of Rhea Ripley and Jey Uso surprising us on SmackDown and Tiffany on Raw. Do you think that is just because the upcoming PLEs of Crown Jewel and Survivor Series with potential cross-brand storylines, or do you think that due to Raw going down to 2 hours and the fact that everything counts, Triple H will continue to lean on history and relationships between superstars, and these surprises will be part of the norm? I'm not against it, provided it does not compromise the brands. There's too much talent on each show and too few hours of TV time that if Cody, Roman, and Rhea are on both shows every week, I fear that it will start to make the product repetitive. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Zach. Those are good points, both of them. I think that a lot of it is this pay-per-view. You know, Gunther, Cody, Rhea, Liv, Nia, Tiffany, like that's all for this pay-per-view. I think that the one thing that supersedes the draft is the bloodline. I think the one thing that supersedes everything in the WWE is the bloodline. I think the rules won't apply to the bloodline because the rules never apply to the bloodline, nor should they. I think everything else, yeah, the integrity will try to be remaining unless you can justify it. Josh writes in, love the pod. I think I have the Cody versus Gunther match at Crown Jewel figured out. Over the last week or so, Cody and Seth Rollins allude to having conquered beasts when discussing their past. Since Cody Gunther is a normal 1v1 match, wouldn't it be great if Brock came back and smashed both guys, causing a DQ? No, it wouldn't be great. That way, it doesn't make one champ look stronger than the other, and it also gets us back on track for the Gunther-Brock match we were heading toward previously. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think it would be terrible. I think that you would then have introduced a championship title that you're not awarding to anybody and don't have an opportunity to award it to anybody because there's nobody to give it to, and you can't give the Crown Jewel title away at Survivor Series. I think that it would make Cody look like a fool to not have a problem with Brock Lesnar, because if Cody doesn't have a problem with Brock Lesnar, then that title meant nothing. The Crown Jewel title meant nothing. And if Cody does have a problem with Brock Lesnar, then what about Kevin Owens and Randy Orton and all this other stuff that we're doing? No, I think that's a terrible idea. Not to say it won't happen, but I don't love it on paper. I think Kevin Owens interferes. Costs Cody the match. Gunther beats Cody. If you're going to have Brock Lesnar back because if you're going to do Brock and Gunther, I would think WrestleMania. And I mean, personally, I don't even have it in my head anymore because I've got Gunther and John Cena for WrestleMania. But if you're going to do Gunther and Brock at WrestleMania, I don't know. I mean, you could just have Gunther would just win the elimination. Brock would just win the Chamber or the Rumble, right? But I have Roman Reigns winning the Rumble, John Cena winning the Chamber right now. Could change. Austin writes in, I acknowledge you, my podcast tribal chief. I don't know if this situation is possible by WWE rules, but what would you think if Tiffy cashes in during the match at Crown Jewel, making it a triple threat? Well, of course it's allowed. You know, there's a precedent for it. Seth Rollins did it at WrestleMania 31 and became the WWE champion. Would she be able to claim both titles since both champions are in the match? Oh, that's an interesting question. No, you know what? No. Oh man, that's so interesting. I love this. So, Tiffy holding both titles along with the Crown Jewel title, that's my opinion, but you're the podcast tribal chief and I'll roll with you. Well, no, I don't support that because you're messing up the brands at that point, but let's think of the math here. Let's think about how that would actually work. I would think that if she cashed in, then whoever she pinned, she would win that title. But her act of a cash-in does not then make both titles on the line within the match. You see, so she's cashing in on a champion. I don't know. She might have to declare. No, maybe because you're cashing in for a championship. So once you cash in, the championship that you are cashing in for is the championship that is now on the line. So if she won that match, she would not win the Crown Jewel title. She would win the championship of whatever person she pinned. It would honestly screw up the whole match because her Money in the Bank would overrule the precedent that was started at the beginning of the match, I think. So I think it's more likely that Liv Morgan wins the match. Tiffy hits Nia with a briefcase. Liv wins the match, gets the Crown Jewel title. Tiffy cashes in, wins Nia's title. That's just me. Arlie writes in, was disappointed last week that Sexy Red's appearance didn't get one of your pitch perfect ski, yeah? Makes me pop every time. I was very excited to see Sexy Red back. That's my favorite wrestler right now. Ski, yeah? Anyway, on to the real matters at hand. Do you see Roman and Solo's feud leading to a tribal combat match where if Roman loses, he must join the new bloodline and follow Solo's every word, similar to John Cena's feud with the Nexus? P.S. New bloodline will cost Jey his title. I agree with you, obviously, on the title thing. I think that stipulation is stupid because it doesn't. I thought it was dumb when John Cena would do it because you can't enforce it. And they didn't enforce it when John Cena was doing it. Like, you can't just do that. I think that there is an idea where there's a tribal combat match where the winner has to get acknowledged by the loser. And if Roman loses, he has to acknowledge Solo Sikoa as his tribal chief. But the idea of, and you have to do whatever I say, that's dumb. But I think that the loser acknowledges the winner is a possibility. All right, we're going to do one more. We're going to go to Adam. Because he's got 2 questions, so you get more. It's one more email. I'll do both questions, though. Adam writes in, great podcast, love it. 2 questions. Raw now being 2 hours. There's so much that feels rushed, with segments bleeding over, especially during promos and matches. Less of the Wyatt 6, etc. Do you think that's why we are getting Saturday night's main event for stories to continue, or will they push stories every 2 weeks or so? No. First of all, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I mean, the Wyatt 6 was taken off TV when Raw was still 3 hours. I think Wyatt 6... I think this new regime is okay using stories to tell stories and then maybe putting the breaks. Maybe tell a different story with other people and then get people excited when those other people come back. Like I said, we've been hinting that the Wyatt 6 are on their way back. Maybe they go through whatever story they're going to go through now, and then they disappear again. Whether Raw is 2 hours or 3 hours, I don't think makes a difference to that. Saturday night's main event is not a weekly show. Saturday Night's Main Event is not coming back to help tell stories. Saturday Night's Main Event is basically a premium live event that airs on NBC. There is no December premium live event. It's Saturday Night's Main Event. Like, that's going to be a huge show, and it's going to be a dual-branded show. So, no, I don't think so. And question 2, will Roman get everyone's trust back before turning on them again? I know William Regal says, pull something away before it becomes stale so you can go back to it again. I'm not saying Roman being face is stale. No, well, he didn't turn on anybody. I don't know why. He's not going to, no, I don't think so, because, look, what makes the bloodline magic is that everybody gets over from it. What makes the bloodline different than any other faction that's ever existed in professional wrestling is that everyone associated, meaning in the group and that fights with the group, is better for it. And I don't think that we just get to a place to go back to where we started. I think that the bloodline evolves and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Look at the new bloodline. The bloodline now is theoretically going to be Roman Reigns, top guy in the industry. Jey Uso, top main eventer, huge one of the top good guys on Raw. One of the huge merch sellers, like the man. Jimmy Uso, who's becoming more and more beloved. If Sami Zayn were to come back, he's a top good guy on Raw. Like, it's a different bloodline. So they're not going to go and like downgrade those people so that we can redo what we already did. So no, I think if the bloodline gets back, honestly, I think that there's a possibility that the bloodline gets rebuilt for the purpose of taking out this new bloodline. And then once that happens and everybody falls in line, I don't know that the bloodline exists as a faction anymore, and instead just kind of spreads its wings. And Roman's a top guy here, and Jay's a top guy here. Maybe Solo finds his next lane. Maybe Jimmy finds his next lane. But I think the bloodline becomes whatever the bloodline becomes next. If that makes sense. I appreciate you guys hanging. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe everywhere you watch and listen. And we'll see you next time here on Notsam Wrestling.